Hello, everyone. I am the Big Cat. Some call me Frank, but I'm joined with Jackson Long.
Hello, welcome to the FasCat podcast.
Yeah, I forgot to say that.
Forgot to say that. That's fine.
I'm still a little out of it after the Steamboat Gravel. It's been 96 hours, and today's the first day I've felt normal.
Yeah, I'd say I recovered pretty well actually afterwards. I'm a little bit out of it today. I will say I feel a little like allergy-y or off, under the weather slightly. But yeah, man, that was that was a whole different kind of effort than I'm used to. It's
141
brutal, man.
miles we did this past Sunday on the gravel at 7,000 feet roughly altitude. We're going to talk about it a little bit, as well as the difference between what cyclocrossers should be doing versus the rest of us, the roadies, the mountain bikers, the gravel. For most of those riders, at least, especially the ones in the Rocky Mountain region, we're at the end of our season. And so we're going to talk about a postseason break, the do's and don'ts of that, how to, how to benefit from taking a postseason break, as well as things to look at to do this fall and winter to set yourself up for 2020. We've got a lot of people on the forum already asking about what to do for races like the British Columbia bike race, BC bike race, Land Run, Steamboat next year, DK. And the biggest thing is like take a postseason break, but then you got to lift weights. You want to build a big base, and then you want to leave time to do some intervals before that. Those are the three pillars. You
have to reset and sort of like shut the mind off a little bit from cycling, I think is super important, because it's sort of we can get into this when we talk about it, but it's hard when a lot of these races, registration is early, they fill up really quickly. And so we're kind of like all season long thinking about races that are 6 months away. And so it can be hard to shut the mind off and just think about other things. But I think just for mental health and just like motivation and psych coming back into the sport for next year, it's just so important. And it's something that a lot of people tend to forget.
Yeah, and we podcasted about that, I think, this time last year. So give that a listen, taking a postseason break. We have a whole training tip with the podcast in there. That's a training tip I wrote like 15 years ago. And I'll have athletes, just so everyone knows, for the type A people that really need to take a break, I'll have them do nothing for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It kills them.
Yeah.
Everyone hates it.
Yeah.
And I get it, but it's a necessary evil. Yeah. Lock up the bite.
Yeah.
And then for those that maybe don't get to train as much as they'd like to, I just say don't follow a training plan for 2 weeks. Don't ride if you don't want to. Yeah. At least give yourself 1 week of no bike riding. Yeah. It's the only 1 week out of 52 you're not going to do that. So it's really important for all those reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah. Then part 3, we're going to talk about future of USA cycling a little bit, get into a little bit of a conversation about just the state of the union of cycling in the U.S. I think is, it's important as the season kind of winds down. I think it's good to take stock and share some of our thoughts.
That's right. The subject came up this past weekend in Steamboat, the role of USA cycling in these changing times. Things are different. And USA Cycling, when I got into cycling, was a powerhouse. You had to have a license, and now
Same
you
here,
don't.
Even in the 12 or 13 years ago when I started cycling, it was very different. Very different.
Much different. The times have changed, and can and will USA Cycling pivot. And I do feel strongly about 2 roles that I think USA Cycling should fill moving forward, and I'll share those. We will share those with you.
Yeah, it's sort of a threefer podcast.
It is a threefer.
There's a lot to talk about.
There's so much going on at this time, at the end of August. I didn't want to do a third podcast on Steamboat Gravel, and we could do a full podcast on the power data analysis.
Oh, God.
Maybe we should. So
maybe a bonus episode.
Maybe a bonus episode. How about, should we place a bet if a dozen people request?
Yeah, we should poll in the forum or something.
Well, that's what we'll do. We'll create a poll in the forum. So go to forum.fastcatcoaching.com and you can vote, should we do a power data analysis? And speaking of the forum, I just want to show it to you all. It's going off. Everyone in there is asking questions about cyclocross. This question, where to go from here, this user is the user that is doing the BC bike race next year and wants to know what to do. He was confusing base with sweet spot. So I was like, sweet spot is your base. So you're covered there. And he was neglecting intervals. So I think I enlightened him there. But, if for the video listeners, a lot of stuff on VO2 max, gravel, yoga, intermittent fasting was a topic. Cyclocross is a big one right now. And then guaranteed this fall, we're going to be talking about weights, resistance training. I think we'll get a podcast in there about the Iceman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with Coach Jake. So, yeah. So anyway, that's going off in the forum. We'll create a poll. Should we podcast? Maybe we should make a video.
Yeah, we could.
Maybe
I
a little
think,
both.
I think the problem is that we've talked about it a lot. It's one race out of many.
Mm-hmm.
It's near and dear to our hearts because, we love the race and we're friends with all the promoters and it's a great thing here in Colorado, but we have a global audience. And so we don't want to just focus only on that. There's a lot more to talk about, but if there's a demand for it, if people care, we can certainly talk about it.
Yeah. And Jackson's right. We don't want to pigeon ourselves, and we do want to podcast to the globally, which I love. But speaking of our podcast listeners, that's kind of what we want to recognize from the Steamboat Gravel is everyone.
Should we talk? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So we're just jumping around. But
sorry. I just want to thank everyone that came up and said, hey, I love listening to the podcast. And, that was super great meeting everyone in the expo and just, meeting you all and seeing, what all walks of life you come from and everything. That was one of the highlights of the weekend for me.
Yeah. I mean, it was just great to see everyone in the community, and it just kind of, just sort of solidifies how awesome the cycling community is in general. And, I was there with my dad and my little brother, and they were just laughing and making fun of me. They're like, man, you're just like this little mini celebrity. Like everyone, you're talking to everyone. You can't walk around without meeting, running into someone or that loves the podcast. And so it's a cool feeling, and it's great to know that what we're doing here is really affecting people positively and making a difference and an impact. I think that's a really beautiful thing, and it's great. And so we just thanks so much for doing that, for listening, for coming up to us, and for putting what we have to say into practice at a thing like Steamboat Gravel or whatever race you may be doing. It's great.
That's right. That motivates us. And I had such a good time in the expo. I was telling Leanne Benish afterwards, and also Mark, I think, that's the first race I've been to where I actually wanted to stay in the expo. Usually I'm like, give me my number, go back to the room, put your feet up. Yeah. But we did that ride in the morning. Yeah. And I went back to my Sprinter van and got the rest of the FP t-shirts, and I gave them out to anyone that mentioned the podcast. That was super fun. I probably could have given out a lot more, so maybe I'll do that next year at the expo. But that was a cool expo, so well done. It was like a cocktail party. Yeah. Kind of like a reunion of a lot of people. And I was there for 5 or 6 hours. I went to lunch with a new friend, Peter Abrams. I just met him, and we just randomly decided to go to lunch together. That was awesome. Checked out the van Do It because I have Sprinter Envy. Yeah. Registered for a new Canyon. Didn't win, but met Eric Zabel.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, got my picture with him. He groads.
He was groaning pretty hard.
Yeah. So we'll get into that. But first, we should not forget the review of the week. Do you want to read it?
Sure. I've never read it before. Maybe I have. I don't know.
You do the honors.
I'll do the honors. Okay. So the review of the week this week comes from Gary Hamer. He says, finished Gravel Worlds over the weekend. It went well. As always, the FasCat plan was spot on. I continue to appreciate and enjoy the simplicity and straightforward workouts presented in the plans. I will continue to use and will continue to recommend the plans to any and all that ask. Thanks,
right
Gary.
on, Gary. Thanks for saying so, and good job at Worlds. It was interesting. Worlds were the same weekend as Steamboat, and we talked about that with Mark when we podcasted about that in December.
Big weekend for gravel.
Big weekend for gravel. And didn't you say?
Yeah, I think there was a guy, Matt Stevens, who's a pretty big gravel racer. I'm pretty sure, maybe I'm completely wrong. I'll have to double check after this podcast, but that he did Gravel Worlds on Saturday, Steamboat Gravel on Sunday. And Gravel Worlds is in Nebraska.
Wow.
Steamboat, obviously, in Steamboat. And so he must have flown or drove straight afterwards.
Wow. Can you imagine doing that?
No.
2 back-to-back 7-8 hour races.
Oh.
Well, good job, Matt. You did that. That's baller status.
Good on you.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about Steamboat.
Yeah.
And big announcement. We got the idea this weekend from you all, from the Expo area, to do a podcast appreciation ride. Ooh. Yeah. So I know that not everyone can attend, but if you're in Boulder on September the 8th, 9 a.m., we're going to do a cool little ride and show up at 9. We'll do coffee and pastries, and then we'll go out for 3 hours. Good fall ride, maybe see some aspens. And we will not go race pace or anything.
No.
It'll be a casual, fun gentleman's pace. So look for more on that in the coming weeks. We'll probably announce that on our forum. Can you tell that we want you to go to our forum?
Yeah.
forum.fastcatcoaching.com for all training, help, and discussion.
Yeah, it's free, and there's lots of good stuff.
Yes.
Lots of good questions and answers.
Okay, well, let's just get into it.
Yeah, Steamboat Gravel.
Steamboat Gravel.
Ooh.
Again, we thanked all you listeners. That was the highlight of the weekend. Got to thank Mark and Ken and Leanne Benish and Amy. You guys knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I think, from everyone that I talked to, from my own experience, I think kind of going into it, there was probably just a little bit of hesitation or just it's always a little bit of a unknown going into a first year event like this. Mm-hmm. A lot of hype for Steamboat Gravel. It's sold out in a couple days, I think. And so, but I think everyone's expectations were exceeded. Mine were certainly exceeded. I think just from the organization to the course to the
mm-hmm.
smoothness of how everything kind of worked and the different events and the different, the expo, and it was such a fun weekend. And they knocked it out of the park for sure. So great work to the team. And, it was just awesome to see. I remember even on, Monday morning as I was leaving, I was, saw Ken and all those guys packing stuff up, working super hard. Mm-hmm. It was just, they were nonstop, and it really showed that they care and that they were working super hard. So, I'll definitely be back next year.
Well done. I will too. That was super fun. Again, I can't go on and on enough about the expo area. It's just super fun. That's never happened to me. Usually it's just, be a super nerd, go back to your room and all that. But it was great seeing and chatting with everyone.
Yeah.
And same way with after the race. I was telling someone, that the 1 hour after you finish the race is the best ever, because you've just done this huge ride. You feel really tired, but you're giving everyone high fives and
you're stoked
sharing
and
stories.
And,
you got maybe a beer, a burger, which comes with your race entry, and you're just visiting with everyone. It's I've never talked to that person before, but since we just rode for 50 miles and suffered together, I'm going to go give them a high five.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's the best part of cycling, I think, in general, and these events. It's everyone is, going through these ups and downs over the course of 7 or 8 hours or however long it takes. And that's just, one of the best feelings ever in sport, I think. And so they really did a great job of facilitating that after the ride.
Mm-hmm.
You come in and there's people cheering and they give you a finisher's hat and, the I-Core recovery shot thing. And it's there's
ice cold towel was clutch.
Yeah. The ice cold towel around the neck. And I was right as I finished, Ted King, the winner, was hanging around the I-Core thing. And we were high-fiving. And it's just I don't know. What's so cool about the kind of gravel scene in many ways is that very different from, like
a road race
where, you're rubbing shoulders with the winner and you're all kind of on the same playing field at the end. You all just did the same thing.
Right.
Some are just faster, but you all are, like, had such a blast, and you're there drinking beer and like hanging out and high-fiving and jumping in the river afterwards. It's just like, and of course Steamboat, the town, is such a
wonderful.
cool town, and everything's right there, and so it was awesome.
It was super awesome. And without going into it anymore, let's tell you a little bit about the actual race.
Yeah.
And again, this is, go to the forum.fastcat.com to take the poll. But for everyone that's watching the video, this is the Training Peaks. They were a sponsor. They were in the expo.
Yeah.
This is my power data from the race. What you see here is power in pink, heart rate in red. This gray is the GPS elevation profile. And then I wanted to leave this blue line in here, the temperature. It was cold AF in the morning. But we knew that because we did that chamois butter ride the morning before, and it was cold AF there. Actually got down to 32 degrees after we started. Good wind chill going.
Yeah.
Here I am, short sleeves, no base.
I started
layer.
with a jacket.
How'd you take it off?
I just took it off.
One of my friends started with like vest and leg warmers, Yos.
Yeah.
And then like later on in the race, I saw him without it on. I was like, how'd you do that?
I also had a frame pack, so I could just stuff it in there with all my snacks.
And your cargo.
And my cargo bibs,
panels.
I was groated to the max.
Well, you're strong. I didn't even have time to like eat a bar. I was like gels and blocks.
I probably ate 8 to 10 gels during that race.
Me too. I didn't have time to chew.
No.
My bars just sat in my pocket.
Yeah.
But anyway, so temperature 32 at 7 a.m. And I wanted to show you this. 100 at mile 128, top of the, I think that was the Smart Wool corkscrew.
Yeah, the corkscrew was hot.
Thanks a lot. There was popsicles at the top, by the way. Little kids were handing them out. That was great.
Yeah.
I didn't take one.
No, I didn't.
I couldn't. I was in the hurt box bad.
There were people taking like whiskey shots and like drinking beer and stuff. I was like, I could not imagine that.
Yeah, they were on a different agenda.
Yeah, they had a very different goal in mind.
Maybe I need to adopt that or try that one time.
Yeah.
But anyway, what you see here, power data graph of the Training Peaks, my power and power rate GPS data. This is the map. I'm going to close this out. This is not too telling. We went around Steamboat Lake and, we went all over the place, ranch territory.
The course is incredible. I mean, it's so dynamic and undulating. There's a bit of everything, a really nice mix of dirt and pavement, great climbs, really fun descents. Yeah. So I
will go back next year and do a Saturday, Sunday ride split up like the beginning and the end. It would be a perfect
2-day thing.
2-day riding weekend. But I'm guaranteed I'll never do this whole ride all in one setting outside of this event. Yeah. I don't think. No. This was a long time on the bike. It's the longest I've ever spent.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to some friends after the ride, and it's like, when did doing 100 miles become the like secondary option? Right? Like who made that choice to be like, okay, riding 100 miles, it's kind of cool. It's but now 140, it's like, it's like the 100 used to be like the big ride.
Right. I guess that maybe came because they wanted this event to be on par with like BWR and DK. Yeah. Perhaps. I mean, also they had a lot of great roads to work with. So why not go for it? I mean, me during the event, I was like, I should do the 100 next year. Yeah. But I did not even cross my mind to, there was the bailout at mile 85. I want to show you all this. The bailout was like at mile right around in here, and there was this hard climb here, and then I cramped up catastrophically right here.
So you should have just turned around and gone to the bailout.
It did not occur to me, but I kept going. But yes.
But that's
100 miles is legit.
Especially on this course. I mean, you're up at altitude. There's plenty of climbing. You can see there's 2 massive climbs, basically. And
total, no one really thought it was that much climbing because it doesn't come all at once like a crusher. Yeah. And cumulatively, We are talking about, where's the climbing?
9,800.
9,800.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost 10,000 feet of climbing.
Almost 10,000 feet of climbing.
But so I mean
Yeah.
it's pretty up. It's up and down. A lot of punchy climbs. There's a couple long climbs.
If you look at the percent grade, like you could, this is the climb up Steamboat Lake around. I mean, we're talking 3.6% here.
Yeah.
So not soul crushing like an 8 or 7%.
Yeah, it's no coal to
climb.
crush, but
Thank gosh, yes.
yeah.
Just it's difficult in a different way. I did hear people say this was more difficult than the crusher.
See, for me, I disagree.
It just depends on your strengths and weaknesses. You being a good climber, the crusher is going to fit into your strengths. However, a lot of this athlete that said it, is a bigger athlete and does well on more of a course like that where he can roll it.
I think the crusher is just more intense. Like it's a little bit more. It's like
shorter.
It's a more concentrated form of pain. Like I never cramp, and like the only time I've ever cramped in a race was during the crusher. And so like I just think the intensity of the like how much climbing there is in such a short time in the crusher is different. But it's it's different. It's a whole different flavor. It's it's a great to have both of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I cramped up driving home. My hands cramped up around the steering wheel.
Really?
Oh yeah, like this finger was going over here. Yeah, it was a hard effort.
Yeah.
But let's get into how this course raced a little bit, because I think because this was a first-year event, and because there was a lot of drafting possible, a lot of groups, no one really knew how this race was going to unfold because of the first year. Like, I was thinking about this, like, you do the Tour of Flanders. They've raced that for years and years in a row. Everyone knows how this race unfolds, what the tactics are.
Yeah.
And, you do a lot of climbing in Flanders, but really you don't start hitting it till the Muir and then the Bosberg at the end. And everyone needs to just survive the climbs until then, and then the last 50K, it's game on. And that's kind of how Ted won. He punched it on the with about 15 miles to go. I read the group was already down to 3 or 4, and for the rest of us mere mortals, it's different. But I want to show everyone. This was Fly Gulch. This is when you start with, I guess we started with 600 or 700 people. I took it as easy as I could without being embarrassingly slow, and I was still getting dropped and I was still suffering. And then I got in, by the time we came down off Fly Gulch and headed out around Steamboat Lake, I was in a good group. And so we actually hit the highway here, and then that's where these two groups came together, and I knew that was the group I was going to spend the rest of the day with. I don't know how it went for you.
Yeah, so kind of through all of this Fly Gulch stuff, like pretty early on, I was up in the front. It split pretty quickly through Fly Gulch, and there was probably a group of maybe 30 of us, the lead group, 30 of us, and we kind of like chilled a little bit on the highway, ate, took off jackets, that kind of thing. And then, going up Steamboat Lake, it was pretty spirited. And so, but it kind of all stayed together. There was a lot of splits, a lot of like ramp ups and slowdowns and ramp ups and slowdowns. And then basically I was with the front group until about halfway through, the first KOM up Steamboat Lake. And then this section was for me the most technical part of the race. And I don't consider myself to be a very good technical rider. I don't really have a background in mountain biking or cross or anything, and so I'm still kind of new to gravel in terms of like the tech, like pinning it around corners and stuff. And so I kind of got dropped during there because I had to keep like trying to jump back onto the group after because it was like loose, kind of deep sand, lots of corners,
sketchy.
Chunky like rocks and stuff like that. I mean, it wasn't bad if you were taking it easy, but those guys were not taking it easy, and so I had to I just basically kind of got popped off of there and rode with a couple of smaller groups through these punchier climbs going into Trout Creek, the big KOM, where I was riding with Simon from GCN.
Nice.
Many of you guys probably know him, and he was pretty funny, and subsequently dropped him, which I'm proud of. He's actually really strong. He's surprisingly.
He's a former professional.
Yeah. And so, but it was, I think it was, it started out a lot faster than expected, and I sort of didn't accomplish my goal of what I set out to do, which was to try and not go out with those guys. But I just can't help myself.
The group was large. So
I'm glad. I'm glad that I
wise
did, because it was like really fast through this whole section, especially on the highway part. And so I made up a lot of time, because I ended up riding most of the second half of the race by myself, which we can talk about. But basically, it was a weird group dynamics of people not riding smoothly in a group. And so I just ended up feeling, at least personally, that I could be a lot more efficient and steady just riding by myself, especially up that climb and in some of the descents. And I felt really good and positive and was eating well. So I actually had a really good day, because I was just riding kind of solo steady, which is interesting because that hasn't really happened to me. Usually when I get dropped, my head goes pretty negative. And so,
gravel's like that. You just got to keep chugging.
Yeah. My mantra the whole day was just keep on trucking. I just kept saying that in my mind. I was like, Jackson, keep on trucking. And like, because it was like, that's what it was. It was like, you just have to keep going and keep pedaling hard and like keep riding steady. And I wasn't relying on too many group dynamics, because people would just kind of surge through and it would break up, and
it'd force you to go harder than you wanted to do. And then you were going to not ride with them anyway. So it's like, why bother in the first place?
Exactly.
I know what you mean. Yeah. So getting back to how this course races. So the first part races hard. That's where you get in your group. And then this middle part off of Steamboat Lake, that was where the people that race too fast in the middle here are the people that died here. And I know that because I was one of them. But the athletes that came off Steamboat Lake and rode sensibly for essentially the next 50 miles are the ones that had the oomph in the last, let's say 25, 30 miles. And, I was talking with Mark after the race. He said right around this turnoff is where the group went from where you had already come off, where the group went in half from about, how big was your group?
It's probably about 20 to 30 people when I left.
He said coming into the stages feed zone right before Trout Creek, it was down to like 15.
Yeah.
And then right after Trout Creek, where you did that long gradual grinder, like I died 1,000 deaths here. I was in survival mode right here. Look at that. I could barely do 200 watts for about 50 minutes. Yeah. But after this Mark said it was down to probably, I didn't quite get the number.
I think it was like 5 or 6 people probably.
This is down to Ted, Colin,
Payson,
Jacob Rath.
Yeah.
He was the dark horse in there. Like that guy was a professional.
He was on Garmin.
Yeah.
Like he's legit.
Former World Tour rider. Anyway, and then you needed to like just kind of after Trout Creek, what you need, the way this course raced is you needed to like gather your wits before you came up on this. This was a road climb, and then man, you like most people I think were in survival mode.
Yeah, we're on like, for those of you who have raced the Steamboat Spring Stage Race. Yeah, this is kind of like the end of that race where you're going up the corkscrew and a couple of the road climbs. But again, like I think what's crazy, what I learned in this race especially is that because it's so long, a lot can change in the second half. I mean, the second half could be its own race by itself.
Oh, yeah.
And so you have to stay positive and you have to pace yourself and you have to be mentally strong, because like for me, I felt progressively better over the course of the day. Like, and I never had any really bad moments. I just knew that I couldn't go too deep because I would pay for it. And so it's, I think, super important, just like for any race, words of wisdom here is that no matter what group you're in, no matter where you are, unless you're like cramping super hard or mega dehydrated or bonking, you just have to keep moving and keep it steady, because that's just like efficient and fast. And so, like this whole section through after that KOM, after Trout Creek. Like I was just rolling,
Really?
solo.
Good for you.
Like I felt good. Yeah.
One of my friends came up to me like right before the top, and I had just enough energy to get on his wheel, and I was like, okay, I need to do this because I'm gonna be with him for the next 30 minutes. But I couldn't even hold his wheel going downhill.
Yeah.
I was such in the hurt locker.
Yeah.
But I think, speaking to the length of the race, for me it was a race. It was 2 races. I raced really well up until right here where I catastrophically cramped. Off the bike, legs feel like they're aliens and can't pedal. But that was because, and this, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
I went too hard and all this. It's net downhill. It was super. I mean, I was in a good group. Up until like for these almost 2 hours, I was like, I'm gonna do really well today.
Yeah. But again, I think with these gravel events,
Yeah.
even when it's downhill, you're still working hard. You're still you're still tense because it's technical and you're trying to navigate the course.
Well, in the previous 2.5 hours, I had done, I had done close to 2,000 kilojoules.
Yeah.
That's like a decent training ride.
Yeah.
Itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Overall I did, 5,374
Dang.
kilojoules. That's 5.3 Chipotle burritos.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So, a
Big
lot of
day.
energy expenditure. Yeah. How many gels did you say you ate?
Probably 8 to 10 plus multiple packs of blocks. I had, I had like half a bar. I mean, and plenty of drink mix. I mean, but I was on top of my nutrition. That was my main goal of the day, was like eat constantly. Yeah. And I was slamming it. And I think that's what helped me, because you just can't get through with an effort like this without that.
Yeah, and remember how we were like hemming and hawing on whether to do the hydration pack?
Yeah.
So I did the hydration pack. I sailed through the first feed zone, which was very fast. The group was we didn't even talk about stopping. All the other feed zones, I will say, what was super cool, before we came into the feed zone, the groups and the guys and gals that I was with, we kind of said, hey, let's all stop. And everyone would say, yes, I need to stop too. So we were like, all right, let's do it really quick. Some people would keep going, but it was so funny. We'd just catch them back anyway. So, but my point is, I was super glad I had that hydration pack. And then I actually refilled it up on the last feed zone with like 25 miles to go. And I was like, should I fill this up all the way? I'm like, yeah, no, I should. And then I wound up drinking it all in the last 25 miles because I was hurting.
It was hot.
Yeah. Anyway, I did a ton of gels and blocks. At that last feed zone, when I was really hurting, I did 2 caffeinated gels, 1 untapped, 1 cold brew. Did 2 swig. You know how they had the swigs of the Coke?
Yeah.
And the volunteers, can we just give them a huge round of applause?
They're like, what do you want? They take your bottles, fill them up with whatever you want, put them back on your bike. Like, I stopped at one feed zone because I had to pee really bad.
Yeah.
They my bottles were in my bike. Like, after I got out of the thing, they opened up my jersey, put ice in there. Super cool. And they were
first class.
Yeah, first class. And they had tons of great snacks. I just would I think we were talking about this before we started recording. I think over the course of the whole day, I only stopped for a total of 4 minutes maybe.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You guys look, my Strava time, 7:37. My race time was 7:41. So, and I stopped at all the feed zones except for the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was very efficient.
That's how quick you got to be.
They had tons and tons of water jugs, so that there wasn't a line at any of, to get water. It was super quick. And so, I think that was awesome. So another great job.
Yeah.
Gold star.
The lady was like, you want a Coke? And I was like, yeah. She's like, cup or can? I was like, cup. And then I slammed it. She goes, you want another one? I was like, yeah. But it was so funny, man. That revived me. I saw my friend Tim Faya there. We raced cyclocross together. We had seen each other, of course, at the expo the day before. And he goes, hey, Frank. And I'm like, hey, man, let's ride this in together. And so he was the motivation that I resurrected, because before that I was just limping. I mean, it was pathetic. And then we were on that roller section back and we were giving it, and
On the pavement?
No, on the dirt. When we came to the pavement, the corkscrew, the long climb, the KOM that they use in the road race, I dropped anchor there again. And I said bye to Tim, and from that point, I literally was counting down every single mile, and I'm like doing math in my head. Okay, we got 12 miles to go. Can I do that in 45 minutes? Because when I cramped at mile 84, this was, I was like 5.5 hours in. The immediate thing I thought of was like, okay, can I go sub 8?
Yeah, let's go sub 8.
Let's go sub 8. But I was, as we were coming down towards the end and I'm dropping more anchor and it's weighing more heavily, I'm like, can I go 3 miles? And I was, can I go 3 miles and still get in the 7:30s?
Yeah. It
was, you had to come up with a lot of creative ways.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. Keep on trucking, baby.
Keep on trucking.
All right. Let's try and wrap up the Steamboat Gravel section. I think we did want to just give a quick shout out to Mr. and Mrs. K-Dog.
Oh, yeah.
We got to meet them in the expo as well, which is great, and chat with them. And it was fun to put, faces to the names, and they're just as funny in person as they are in the podcast questions.
If you remember from our Q&A podcast last week, K-Dog was asking about upper body work for his man boobs. So there was that. And they had done the DK, and they both did the 140. So kudos to them. I got to meet Eric Zabel. Did I say that already?
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah.
I
met there. I mean, like, there was everyone from like GCN crew to all these pros, and it's everyone's just kind of mingling around. It was cool. So
I guess the final thing I would say is I really loved my 32 millimeter Gravel King SKs. Handled like a dream. The course was a little crossy. And there was one section after the second feed zone. We're coming down a 2-track. It's downhill. There was some erosion. There was some soft parts. I just let it go there and used my cyclocross skills. No worries. That was when I turned around. I had a gap inadvertently just because everyone else is braking. And these 2 kids come by me and just put the hammer down. That's where I made my mistake. I got on their wheel. We bridged up. I rode too hard, so forth. But
that's where I sucked. Handling wise,
you just need to pull on the brakes less.
It was scary.
But that was a fun section. I really enjoyed that element of the Steamboat, where you'd be on this buff ranch road one moment, and then you'd be on this double track, the next. So it was a little. There was some diversity to it. Should we move on to cyclocross and roadies and mountain bikers? Okay, and so we kind of talked about this. So if you're a cyclocrosser right now, you should be like a caged tiger, frothing at the mouth. You've been training your ass off for the last 6 or 9 months. You've lifted weights. You've built up a good base with sweet spot training. You've been doing your intervals. You've been doing your skills practice, your tabatas, your race starts. I mean, you got like 1 or 2 weeks to go. So just keep practicing and unleash. And like, that is the complete other side of the spectrum than, the road crew. I mean, Masters Nationals was less than 2 weeks ago. Labor Day is traditionally the last race. I mean, we're coming down to the end of the season. You're kind of running on fumes, maybe. Motivation's a little low. Looking forward to the fall and not training so hard. And so we should talk about that and what that means. For the cyclocrossers, you got your plan. You need to be doing your skills.
FTFP, for sure. Tabatas, 1-minuters, 30 seconds, race starts, skills practice. Do not forget the skills practice. Get out there into a park, run, jump, corner, race start, handle your bike. That's as important as your power output. Do not forget that. Training races, the Wednesday Worlds, all that. First couple of races, the first race is always hard, but you can tell who's prepared and who's not. And then after that, this first race, you got 14 weeks. Yeah.
It's so short.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Crazy. But now for us roadies, gravelers, Is that what roadies have become?
Yeah. What is road cycling anymore?
What is road cycling?
So many roadies at Steamboat Gravel, by the way.
I mean, this Steamboat Gravel was a road race on gravel.
Yeah.
And no surprise, a very savvy road racer won it.
And both the men and the women's side. Brody Chapman, women's winner, she's World Tour women's racer, previous Australian national road champion.
Right.
It's a road race on dirt, and I mean that's what I think, a lot of these gravel races.
That's why I love it.
It's great. It's fantastic. Yeah. And I mean, I'm sort of kicking myself that I didn't get a chance to go out to Steamboat and ride the course beforehand. I think not to get back into the Steamboat discussion, but it's fresh in our minds. But I think this applies to a lot of things, again, and probably even for cyclocross racers. It's like there is so much value in knowing the course really well and going into these races more prepared. I also like relishing in the fact that going into these races kind of, especially these gravel races, a little bit naive, because for me that's part of it. I think it's really fun to like race on a course that you've never seen before and like have it be a novel experience of like, wow, this is a beautiful area. Oh, this climb is so cool. And like, but if you were trying to like do really well and win the thing, it's like, I mean, you have to be
head down, blinders, wheel in front. You have to have a constant eye on the terrain. You're choosing your line. With gravel, unlike asphalt, where you can assume it's going to be consistently good, you really have to watch the every line, every turn, every rock like a hawk. You make small adjustments. That's how you don't flat. If you stop paying attention, that's how you're going to bang a rock and flat.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
That's one difference between the gravel and the road.
But anyway, back to us roadies and gravel people and mountain bikers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like coming to the end. And I think, like we mentioned at the beginning, it's such an important time of year to focus on, I guess, sort of like toning down, starting to think about off-season stuff, enjoying the fall foliage in other ways, taking a break from the bike. And like we always talk about, like shifting the balance towards other life stuff going on.
That's right.
Take the kids camping or, go on a trip you've been wanting to go on with your wife or whatever it might be. Because I think a big problem in today's world with cycling is because of these gravel events and different races. It's just like you can race year round all over the place, do all these crazy races, and just tire yourself out and never take a rest to hit reset, to even just for the mental thing of getting motivated again for the next season for your target races. It's critical. It's critical.
For us here in the Rocky Mountain region, and even in the Mid-Atlantic and the New England, where we have seasons, upper Midwest, you have a summer, a fall, a winter. You are forced to not ride or not race. Southern California, which has beautiful weather all year round, and they have events all year round. Like we're coming up on Fondo season for Southern California. Phil's Fondo, the Haute Route San Francisco is coming up, and like Levi's and all that stuff. There is never a break, and you got the FOMO thing going, and you really you just got to choose some time frames where you're not gonna compete. And fortunately here in Colorado, the weather starts to get cooler, and then for other parts of for those warm weather parts like Southern California, thankfully we do have daylight savings, so maybe it's dark after you get done riding, so you can't ride. So there's a little bit of seasonality there. But like this weekend on Sunday, I'm gonna go to the Colorado Classic, watch the women's pro cycling race, and I'm not even gonna ride. I'm not even gonna worry about riding. And also, one other aspect, taking a break from the bike is one part of it. We talk about winning in the kitchen. Believe it or not, I don't necessarily try to win in the kitchen when I take my break. I think that you need to take a break from your nutrition, and I might have something that we would not encourage during the rest of the 50 weeks of the year.
Pint of ice cream after the ride. What's your vice?
last night, instead of doing my salmon and rice, I did, I made one of those, what's the plant burger?
The Beyond Burger.
Made a Beyond Burger.
Well, come on. I mean, that's not that bad.
But I never have that. And
Sure.
I had French fries.
Okay.
So I made myself a burger and fries.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And then like I'll go out to lunch and, have like a burrito and not worry about it. You just don't, being good with your nutrition takes a lot of work. And you should take a break from that. And that's what, this postseason break is. Same way with sleep. Yeah. Getting 8 hours of sleep takes a lot of work. Yeah. And if you're married or in a relationship or you have kids, your partner may not like going to bed early or getting up early or something. Take a break from that. Yeah. With kids, I started taking my kids to school this week. So, in the summer, when I'm riding in the morning, I'm like, you're on your own.
Yeah. You can walk to school.
Yeah. You get yourself there.
Yeah.
So you're giving back to other areas of your life. And again, go listen to the podcast that we did. Postseason break. And, if you have any questions, go over to our forum and ask about them. But basically, stop being that regimented, following the plan, you don't FP for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I think it's important to think about the off season as part of the periodization. I think a lot of times it's easy to just sort of like not structure it. I mean, I think obviously it's unstructured, but it also kind of fits into the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. And so I think if you take it seriously in the fact that you're not taking it seriously, I know it sounds kind of backwards, mm-hmm. but like be intentional about taking your off season, be intentional about these things of like letting yourself eat some, more junky stuff, or, go out and get a couple beers with your friends on the weekends, or, go on a camping trip that doesn't involve bikes at all. And, whatever, like stay up late and, do stuff that's maybe like not that you kind of miss when you're in the season. It's going to refresh you a lot more for the upcoming season.
That's right.
So yeah, I think we covered a lot of that stuff in the postseason break episode, and I think it's a good thing to do.
Give that another lesson. Just get it. I tell athletes, get it out of your system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then to your point, last thing we'll say about this, the periodization, the annual training plan. This break, everyone may think this is not part of training. This break is immensely important to the other 50 weeks of the year. And it's kind of like Monopoly. You do not pass go. You do not begin training for 2020 until you take a good break.
Yeah.
By doing so, you're reloading, you're recharging all the energy which you're going to draw upon for the next 50 weeks.
Right.
I see this time and time again. Athletes that don't take a good break burn out too early, too soon next season. Maybe in January, maybe in April, but it's your chance to recharge.
Yeah, I mean, for me, basically after Rebecca's, I'm basically done from the bike. It's like I'll still like maybe do a couple little bike packing trips or do a little bit of riding during the week, but I'm gonna shut it down, take some time off, do some other things, and I think it's just, at least, I mean, I know myself pretty well, and I have to do that. I always have. I mean, I grew up in a town, where I couldn't even ride in the winter, so I had to do that. I had to do, go Nordic skiing and do other sports because I was forced to, but I also just needed it mentally. I can't imagine living in SoCal or something where it's just awesome riding year round, because it would be so tempting to just like nonstop.
For our SoCal athletes, one of the hardest things to do is get them to do a resistance training program, to take 10 weeks where you aren't.
You just go to the gym riding when it's so nice outside.
Yeah,
it's
people
hard.
don't go to, cyclists don't go to the gym, but if you can get a SoCal cyclist to do a good weightlifting program, that's how you get faster. And it's not like you're not riding for those 10 weeks. You are. You very much are. You just are also going to the gym. And that leads me to mention our off-season resistance training plus sweet spot base. This is a 32-week program, and this is doing all the right things at all the right times. It's lifting weights. It's 4 phases. It's cycling specific. And then after you lift weights, then build your base. And you do that primarily through sweet spot training. You do some tempo. You do plenty of zone 2 as well for all the polarization people.
Yeah.
But it's 32 weeks. And then that's what you do beginning in October, November for any race. If anyone on our forum, anyone asks a question, I have this coming up from April through August. This is what you do. If you're a roadie, mountain biker, gravel, anything, time trialist, hill climber, you got to get it,
When should you start this?
Work backwards about 38 weeks because this plan takes 32 weeks, and then you want to leave 6 weeks to do race-specific intervals.
So 38 weeks from your first race of the season.
Yeah,
or
first
target.
A race.
Yeah, first A race. Okay.
You can do this plan into your season if those are like B or C races. Yeah, but so much of training is what you do and when, and for the athlete that's like, what can I do to be better next year? It's like lift weights and build a bigger base. Those are the two biggest things. Ride more, lift weights, and this plan will help you do it.
Cool.
So moving on, the third part of our podcast that goes into kind of like what was point of discussion at Steamboat and everything. It's like the role of USA Cycling in these changing times. Yeah. And so what we're going to do today, we're just going to kind of roll it out, let you know where we're at. And then we're going to interview some folks that are authorities, also may have some opinions on this. One of the reasons why I wanted to podcast about this, I talked with a parent, a good friend of mine, former pro, saw him at the start line. And there was a young rider with him. And I was like, oh, is that Riley? And he said, no, Riley's racing Tour L'Avenir right now. And so we got to talking, and I found out that that is the only thing the USA Cycling is doing for the U23s right now. The U23 program is L'Avenir, and they did California. So I'm going to interview some folks at USA Cycling to find out what's going on with that. But it sounds like the U23 program isn't what it used to be, and that worries me.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because I think separately, I also was thinking a lot about USA Cycling over the weekend, and just like I was just amazed and sort of like in awe of the whole event. And like, I mean, I've been cycling for a long time, relatively speaking, and I started as a junior in the USA Cycling, sort of world. And I went to the USA Cycling development camps, and I was doing all the bike races, and honestly, I've never seen anything like Steamboat Gravel, where it's just like that, like so many people. I mean, I grew up in racing where there was people like 20 or 30 people in a race, versus now where there's 700 people on the start line, and that's a really cool feeling. So I was thinking like, man, what is cycling in 2019? What does that mean in the US? And obviously gravel is super hot right now, but like where does road cycling fit in? Where does mountain biking fit in? And I think USA Cycling obviously is a huge piece of cycling in the US and in the world. And so I think it's just important to kind of like reflect and just have a conversation about like, okay, what does this look like? What's the future look like?
Where is road cycling going to be at 2030?
Yeah.
And where's USA Cycling going to be in 2030?
Right.
Where's our sport going to be? And I think we all care about that. And with the rise of gravel, it's like one of the questions was, should USA Cycling be involved in gravel? And that's the thing. It's like gravel has partly evolved outside of USA Cycling because USA Cycling has kind of put some roadblocks on race promoters, trying to make money off race promoters, and race promoters are really, trying to make ends meet first and foremost. And I've put on a race before, and there's nothing worse than the night before the race where you have thousands of dollars already spent and you don't know how many people are going to show up the next day to register, which you need in order to just break even, not make money, which you've just worked your butt off for, but just to break even. And so I think, gravel has evolved outside of USA Cycling because those promoters when they just start off, it's just to make ends meet. It's to be a cool event for the riders and not spend money on any unnecessary stuff.
And it's this really cool blend between what's so great about road cycling is the competition part and the like camaraderie of racing and that excitement and experience of racing, with the kind of grand fondo idea of you can still do the same course, be on the same start line as these people that are racing, but enjoy the day and not be focused on the competition side, and instead just ride and experience the day and the course and still be able to finish, and kind of rub shoulders with everyone. I think that's also a huge part of it, is that a lot of times I think potentially USA Cycling races or road racing is maybe a little bit intimidating to break into for people that aren't necessarily super focused on, the competition side, but they still want to put a number on, be part of the whole scene and ride these events. And, things like Dirty Kansas, I think that's what's great about it, is that it appeals to the Ted Kings of the world, but also the people that are just like new to cycling. They're like, man, I had this huge goal of riding 200 miles on, in my home state of Kansas, and I am going to train for it. I'm going to prepare for it, but I've already, the actual event is just the cherry on top, and I'm just here to have fun and experience what Dirty Kansas is all about, and the community,
Right. And USA Cycling doesn't really have much to offer in that way, and I think that's their opportunity in the next 10 years, is to elevate participation and enjoyment of the sport, and to, rather than force you to buy a license and go through that barrier of entry of like having to take out a one-day license or get a license and deal with that before your first race. I mean, that's a huge barrier of entry to just the people that are racing for the first time. I think one of the roles of USA Cycling should be to serve the membership and to make participation in the sport easier, more enjoyable, more fun, and also to help race promoters not try to make money off of them. And I don't know the specifics of that, but there's a lot of smart people, I think, at USA Cycling and race promoters that can come together and work on that. And I think that's one part, is serve the membership, race promoters are members, and then USA Cycling also used to have a really wonderful coaching program. And I would go down to Colorado Springs, the Olympic Training Center, probably like a dozen times in the 2000s, and attend wonderful coaching seminars from PhD sports scientists, exercise physiologists, experienced coaches. And I think that program should be, I know it's still going on, but they need to breathe some new life into it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a good resource to support the coaching community, and then the membership out of that. But I guess like the number one thing I think USA Cycling, their role in the future is, should they have a hand in gravel? I don't think so. I think they should. I think USA Cycling has gotten spread thin. They have their eyes on a wide variety of things. And I think they really need to focus and go laser-like back to the original mission of winning world championships and Olympic medals.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for us to say, that for people in the cycling world to say like road cycling is dead. And I don't think road cycling is going anywhere. I think it's still huge. It will always be huge, especially in Europe, and at the highest level of the sport. It's the Tour de France is the Tour de France. It's always going to be huge.
Yep.
And so I think that is, I think, something that USA Cycling should still and always focus on. I don't think they need to waste their energy and resources in getting into gravel, because like we said, road cycling is still a very important piece of this whole cycling community in general, and I think it's still great. And so there's, I guess, technically gravel worlds, but it's not real, really. Like it's not UCI.
It's not
sanctioned.
USA Cycling sanctioned.
And so I think
it's not a gold medal event, and therefore USA Cycling should not be involved in it.
Exactly.
If your event offers up a UCI World Championship or gold medal, absolutely USA Cycling as the governing body belongs there. Tour de France, absolutely. I mean, in order to win a world championship or a gold medal, USA Cycling needs to take athletes, develop them, put them in the races that compete against the best, that go on to compete in the Olympics and the world championships. That's what the national teams are. That's what I did for the USA women's team in 2007. You take athletes from US, take them to the best races. We did all the World Cups, give them experience, let them figure out how to win, how to develop, and then you provide the opportunity for them to go on and do well at the World Championships and the Olympic medals.
Yeah.
Chris and Armstrong, Amber Nevent, two great examples. Mara Abbott, those are the athletes that we would take to all those races and then go on to use that experience to win. And I think that's the primary role of USA Cycling. So I don't think they need to be putting on amateur national championships and, working on partnership deals for nationwide insurance that I don't really care about. That's not why I joined USA Cycling. And this goes back to serving the membership. I'm going to join USA Cycling as a coach to do my road and cyclocross races. And then one of the things, I really want to join the USA Cycling to support the national team. That's like, I want those athletes to go on and do well, and I'm willing to spend some money to support them. So I think that should be a part of your license or a reason to become a USA Cycling member.
Because there's some very promising young athletes in USA Cycling, and that I think, we all, I think, are still kind of recovering from the Lance era. Yeah. But I think that we can still help promote these younger athletes that could go on to do well in Grand Tours and World Championships. And, people like Brandon McNulty and, some of these other younger racers that kind of, maybe they're involved with USA Cycling, but they end up going into things like the Action Team or these other development teams because there's a lot more support for them there versus through USA Cycling. And so maybe there's a way to create a better blend there where membership can simultaneously help promote more racing and more involvement in the sport, but also support those racers who are promising and up and comers so that they actually feel like they're being supported and they're not just having to pay their way themselves out of pocket in order to race across the pond, because that's really where it matters.
Absolutely. And I know Tim Johnson's down at Colorado Springs working for the foundation, raising money that pays for these national team programs. I think every single national team rider needs to become an ambassador of the sport, give back, and be given the platform to do their own fundraising, to support their racing. Every single year when USA Cycling announces the cyclocross world's team, you see all these GoFundMe and things, and it's kind of sad. It bums me out that they're like, hey, you want to come to Worlds? Great, that's going to cost you $6,000. That is preventable and avoidable. And I'm not saying that it's all in USA Cycling, but I think those athletes need to be put in a pipeline and saying, hey, look, you can go to Worlds, but you need to start raising money. And USA Cycling say, hey, you could come to this event, or go speak here, or here, do this in your community, and work together to help raise those monies. Yeah,
because we'll talk about it a little bit with generating a little bit more sports science and the coaching sort of support. You look at these other governing bodies of cycling, such as British Cycling or Australian Institute of Sport. Some of the biggest powerhouses in cycling and sport in general. Places like Australia and the UK. I think there's just so much more support for athletes in way smaller countries and smaller pools of athletes than in the US, where they, have a really, robust system for these athletes to be able to, attend Worlds or attend these big races and get to go on trips to Europe and to race so that it's not such a huge barrier to them. Because yeah, it's definitely got to be frustrating for these kids who, I mean, it just creates a little bit more of an elitist sport, more than cycling already is, because it sort of separates that if you have to pay out of pocket to go race.
Yeah. And that leads me into one of the greatest things I think I would like to see. And I think collegiate cycling, we've podcasted about this. That's how I met you. I think collegiate cycling is the greatest, largest untapped talent pool in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I know USA Cycling does this with the women. There's a women's national team racing in the Colorado Classic that's starting today. But how
the collegiate all-stars?
Yeah. Riders from all different collegiate teams come together to form a national team. Now, how about that for the men? It's weird we're saying that with men. But take the best riders from collegiate nationals. You can do that at road. You can do that mountain. You can do that at track. Take those riders and say, hey, you're invited on a trip. And, you're going to have to raise your own money, but we'll subsidize this with this. But you're going to go to Europe. You're going to do these races, and that's your chance. And you're already on good form because you just won nationals. So let's see what you can do over in Europe.
Yeah.
Give these athletes a chance. And I think the collegiate national team is a program where USA Cycling could really, that's where the next Lance is.
Right.
To use a bad analogy, but that's where the next. That's where the next Ben King is.
Yeah.
Or Phil Gaiman. Yeah. All those guys came from collegiate programs. They just had professional opportunities awaiting them when they graduate. But when you got out of college, you didn't have anything like that waiting for you. And even if there was just like a program, not only would there be that opportunity, that would also elevate collegiate cycling, give athletes maybe a reason to stay in school.
Right. And I was going to say, we talked about this. We did a whole collegiate podcast with Isaiah. And I think we talked about this, is that there's not a whole lot of incentive to race collegiate.
Right.
Because there is no direct path into racing at a higher level and to stepping up from there.
Right.
And I think that a lot of the best cyclists in the U.S., again, they don't always opt to go to college because they're willing to take that risk to go through the kind of more national team route versus being able to still stay in school and have that achievement, but also having some incentive to race, and so that there's a way for another pipeline that's parallel, but also can, like you said, lead to some really great untapped potential.
Right. Yeah. Have a spring break trip, and then have a bunch of trips in the summer, and then actually literally tell the riders, hey, stay in school, spring and fall, where that has not always been the case. A lot of riders would go to the fall semester and then take the spring semester off to train full time, and then also be available to race. And that was a bummer.
Yeah.
Anyway, I definitely think collegiate cycling could be elevated, and just because you have the rise of the high school mountain bike league, which is killing it, super good. Those kids need to go to college, and they need to have a program once they're there, and there's a big gap. And there's a whole funnel of really talented kids coming out of that program, and I think that's where collegiate cycling could pick up and continue to move them on through the pipeline. And it's all right there. It just needs a little bit of organization.
Yeah, totally.
And then we kind of hit on this. The last thing, I think, the role of USA Cycling is to develop a really good sports science program. Yeah. This goes back to, serving the membership and the coaches that do take out a USA Cycling coaching license. I know for one that if I was in my 20s and 30s, I would totally go to Colorado Springs, attend a seminar and learn. And I would totally sign up to work on a national team sports science program.
Yeah, I would love to do that right now. Like I wish that, especially for me with
nutrition.
Yeah, with my nutrition path of wanting to get more involved in the sports nutrition world, and work with athletes, help to promote education in that world. I think I wish that there was more opportunities and options for for people like me that are super interested in sports science, and that want to help support athletes, and it just doesn't seem like, versus something like the AIS, Australian Institute of Sport, there's a ton of stuff going on. There's a lot of cool science happening, and I'm a big nerd when it comes to like research and stuff, and I think also it could be really useful in the grand scope of sports science globally to have coaches, nutritionists, exercise physiologists work with these athletes to design research studies and to further the world of sports science and nutrition, and to really get some good data out of it and help. Yeah, I mean, because that's what's going to help us win more gold medals and more world championships and bike races.
You need the science. You need, if you want to win, you need to put some money and some effort and some brain power into figuring out what that is. And to go back to collegiate cycling, that's what those athletes could study, and and then they'd have a career waiting for them.
Exactly.
Exercise physiology, if you major in that, it's tough to get a job in your field. But if there was some jobs at USA Cycling or just the USOC in general, heck yeah, I would choose that academic track.
I mean, I think about what Sky has done as a result of being basically spawned from British cycling and their whole science program of marginal gains. I mean, they've changed the sport of cycling because of that. And so I think the US, we have so many resources. We have such a huge opportunity here to throw our chips in the pot as well. So let's do it.
Absolutely. And to tie it together, we talked about winning gold medals, world championships. You need staff to do that. And these collegiate athletes that are studying to be a part of this sports science program, they need real world experience. Be the staff on these national teams, and learn.
Give me a job. USA Cycling.
Give them an apprenticeship, internship, and there's
plenty of people
smart people out there
that are willing to put in the hours and to be a part of this new frontier of sports science in the U.S. as it applies to cycling. I think. I mean, I speak for many of my peers in college that were super excited about that. And like, there's, lots of cool opportunities that we would love to be a part of. And that's just going to keep happening. And so we have to create those niches. We have to create those opportunities.
And I think that's the role of USA Cycling. That is their job, to create that, to organize that, to bring all these people together to make these things happen. So we're going to take 4 to 6 weeks. We're going to interview some people. I'll just say it right now. Tim Johnson, you're on my list. Rob, the new CEO of USA Cycling, you're on my list. I'm going to ask Clark Sheehan, whose son is racing Lavernier right now, what he thinks. If I talk to you in the next 4 to 6 weeks, I'm going to ask you what you think the role of USA Cycling should be. And then we'll come back to you in a future podcast.
Cool. I think we did it.
We did it. 3 topics in one.
Yeah, that was a lot.
That was covered. A lot. Thank you all for listening. We are going to be with Dirk Friel next week, the co-founder and owner of Training Peaks, the software that we use to, with all of our coaching and training plan athletes. Dirk started Training Peaks, over 15 years ago, maybe longer. And it's become the leader in training software. We're going to speak with Dirk. And I also think we have a bonus episode coming up next week of a TBD variety. And remember, go to the forum and fill out our poll about the power data for Steamboat podcast, yay or nay. It could even be like a little mini episode.
Yeah, for sure.
So that we don't ramble.
Yeah. And I'll see many of you hopefully at Rebecca's Private Idaho coming up next weekend.
Jackson's road tripping. I am afraid I'm
too
out of bullets.
Yeah.
Kids are back in school.
Yeah, it's hard.
This past Monday, Tuesday was brutal figuring out where I got to be and when and taking all of them. Then my daughter got sick, and then she was home from school on Wednesday. So I'm fully back into dad mode. Yeah. Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and shoot us any questions you have, and we'll be back very soon.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.